The UCD Intel Master's Scholars is a program that rewards creativity and innovation, something that this global pandemic is asking a little bit of us all as we adapt to the new normal. So we turned a live event into an online series. It's called Message in a Bottle. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Muireann and I'm a master's student at UC Berkeley, studying a master's in Control of Robotic and Autonomous Systems. I did my undergraduate degree in Mechanical Engineering in UCD and I graduated in 2019. In fairness, I was actually not that interested in doing engineering when I was in secondary school, and I kind of made a last-minute switch to engineering at the CAO closing. I was initially planning on doing chemical engineering when we were in general engineering in first year, but I took a couple of electives in the electrical and electronic engineering department along with mechanical engineering, and I decided that I liked working with my hands and physical systems, so I decided to pick mechanical engineering. In second year, I developed a strong interest in thermodynamics and fluids because we were exposed to a lot of concepts like these through the classes in UCD. A lot of my friends were also applying for study abroad at this time, and I didn't want to be left behind, so I decided to look at my options. UCD has brilliant international connections all over the world in places such as Asia, the US, and Australia. I decided that I would like to go to the US because I'd never been. So I applied for California and I got lucky enough to be placed at UC Berkeley, which is where I am now, again. So then in my third year, I came over to California for a semester of study abroad. And I have to say that my study abroad definitely changed my perspective on education and on a lot of other things. The classes here are smaller, they're a lot more focused on specific areas, and I took classes in materials, thermodynamics, MATLAB, fracture mechanics, and lots of other things. I also took part in extracurricular activities such as the IEEE Micromouse competition. So this competition involves building an autonomous mouse and letting it autonomously solve a maze. And while we didn't get to the competition in the end, it definitely gave me a good start in controls and robotics and made sure that it was an area that I was definitely very interested in. During study abroad, I also got a lot of opportunity to travel around and see the US, along with making a lot of international friends who are now doing PhDs and have startups. So it's very interesting to meet people with other perspectives outside of Ireland. Also during my third year, I was offered a research fellowship by the Nocton Foundation. This opportunity came through UCD and I applied for it. So then I did a summer of biomechanics research at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana, which is also in the US. So this was my third university, my second US university. I was doing tensile testing on canine ribs, and I was given entire ownership of my project, and the exposure to research and working in a lab with PhD students was really interesting. And biomechanics wasn't an area that I had really considered before, but that summer was really enjoyable and it cemented the idea that I did want to come back to the US for further education and to work for a couple of years. So when I went back to UCD, I was still very interested in fluids, thermodynamics, energy systems and climate change. So I decided to apply for programs, PhD and Masters in the US and in the UK. So while I was applying for these, I was taking a lot of classes in my final year at UCD. And I really enjoyed classes such as energy systems and climate change because I feel like they're very relevant to issues in today's world. I was also doing my final year project at the time. So I was working with Dr. Kevin Nolan, and my thesis was called Hierarchical Mapping of Condensation on Metallic Surfaces. I feel like my thesis was really invaluable to me in terms of experience and exposure to other concepts that don't necessarily sink in when you're in class. So I did a lot of work in simulations in MATLAB. I got a chance to work with Arduino, to build hardware, to work with the machine shop. I got exposure to Python, to some pretty advanced mathematical concepts. And I have to say, Dr. Nolan was really, really good in offering me lots of support and advice. And I feel like my project worked out very well in the end, and I ended up learning a lot. I was also lucky enough in my fourth year to be offered a full academic scholarship here to UC Berkeley for my master's. So I'm currently pursuing an MEng. It's in the electrical engineering and computer science department. So I did a little bit of a switch. And I have to say, I did struggle with that at the beginning because a lot of the classes were aimed at people who have a background in electrical engineering or computer science. So it was pretty difficult coming in from mechanical engineering. But I feel like a lot of the foundation that I got in UCD was definitely very applicable here. So at the moment, I'm working in the Model Predictive Control Lab with Professor Francesco Borelli. And my capstone project is building a low-speed, heavy-load autonomous driving platform. So there's a team of us working on this, which is a little bit different to how the final year project works in UCD. And we have a hardware team and a software team. And I'm working on the software team, and I'm working on path planning and path following algorithms mainly. So basically, this is predefining a route for our autonomous vehicle to take, and then developing control algorithms that will ensure that the vehicle stays as close to the predefined path as possible while avoiding obstacles. I've also had the chance to take a lot of classes here in like experiential advanced control design, advanced control systems, hybrid control, with a lot of PhD students. So I have had a lot of exposure to research. Also, I'm building an autonomous fruit picking robot at the moment for one of my classes, which is quite fun and very interesting. Last semester, I started interviewing for a lot of jobs here in the US. I was mainly interested in working for startups, and obviously for my capstone project in my lab, I'm working on autonomous vehicles. So autonomous vehicles are becoming really big here in California. They actually changed the state law recently that certain companies are allowed to drive their vehicles entirely autonomously in certain areas. So I interviewed for Waymo, which is Google's self-driving car project. And I had 8 interviews, and I was offered a position in autonomy software systems engineering. So I'll be starting there in June, down in Mountain View in Silicon Valley. I'm really excited to start because I feel like I've developed my software skills and my hardware skills a lot, but a lot of my output has been purely academic, and I'm really excited to kind of apply principles that I've learned to something that's actually going to make a difference in the world. So that's my plan for the next year or so. I'm lucky with my visa that I can stay in the US for the next 3 years. But I wouldn't be here without UCD. I would never have considered doing a master's in California if I hadn't been to California on exchange in the first place. And UCD offered me that opportunity. They offered me research fellowships. UCD is a very well respected university here for undergrad. So I'm very grateful to the experience that I had at UCD, especially to the support I had during my final year project from Dr. Nolan. Advice that I would have to first year students in UCD would be to apply for study abroad. It definitely broadens your perspective on a lot of educational things. You get to take classes that you wouldn't necessarily get to take at home. You get exposure to a lot of things. So I developed an interest in like vehicles, obviously, and autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles. So when I came home, I took part in the UCD Formula student. I was on the suspension team in my 4th year. My advice to older students would be to focus as much as you can on your research project, because I feel like that's where I learned the most, and I learned a lot of concepts that are definitely applicable to working life and to what I'm studying now. So best of luck with everything, and thank you for asking me to make this video.